Today is Wednesday, January 22nd. The time is 2:18 p.m. and we are now ready to call to order the Committee of Legislative Oversight. Again, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Philadelphia City Council session. I want to thank my colleague, Councilmember Lozada, for being here with me today. And I now note that the hour has come. Mr. Maynard, are you ready? Mr. Maynard, will you please call the roll to take attendance? Members that are in attendance will say aye to notify that you're present.
Vice Chair Landau. Councilmember Phillips. Councilmember Squilla. Councilmember Young. And most importantly, Chair Thomas.
Present. Thank you, Mr. Maynard. This hearing is now called to order. This is the public hearing of the Committee of Legislative Oversight on Resolution number 240983. Mr. Maynard, will you please read the title of the hearing resolution to be heard today?
Resolution 240983, authorizing the Committee on Legislative Oversight to hold hearings to receive the report of the PHL Gaming Task Force, to learn about its findings and the actions thus far taken, and to review the impact of this work on the vital gaming and tech sectors in the city of Philadelphia.
Thank you, Mr. Maynard. Before I call the first panel, I just want to take a moment to first and foremost talk about the importance of the gaming industry. For those who don't know, this hearing is extremely important to us as the city of Philadelphia because gaming is one of those industries that we want to be recognized, to be branded as it relates to how people think about our city. Far too often when I hear people describe the city of Philadelphia through an economic lens, we call Philadelphia the city of eds, meds, and beds. And if you don't know, those eds represent our institutions, those meds represent our universities, and those beds represent the hospitality industry. While all of those things are great and great ways to be branded as a city, we now know we have a growing biotech scene, predominantly in the West Philadelphia section, so that's becoming part of the narrative. And as we begin to modify that narrative to add biotech, my goal and our advocacy as it relates to the work that we're trying to do is to make gaming a part of that conversation. We want Philadelphia to be a gaming city. The gaming industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and when you think about the home of gaming, it doesn't necessarily exist. We want to compete with other cities, whether they're in Canada, whether they're in the South. We want to compete with other cities to be known as the city that's the home for gaming in the gaming industry. And so with that intentionality in mind, we started the PHL Gaming Initiative. Then we moved into the PHL Gaming Task Force. And today, we're able to have our first hearing to examine the findings of the PHL Gaming Report and to listen to recommendations from experts in the gaming community who are going to advise us as it relates to what government can do to turn that dream into a reality and to have Philadelphia be the gaming capital of the country and hopes to be the gaming capital of the world. So I want to say thank you all as it relates to every member of the PHL Gaming Task Force. And I also want to give a huge shout out to my Chief of Staff, Don Miller, who has been the point person from my office as it relates to leading the Gaming Task Force, leading the PHL Gaming Initiative, and fighting to make sure that the gaming industry is one of the most recognized and important industries in the city of Philadelphia as we start 2025 and move forward. So Mr. Maynard, with that being said, if you could please call the first panel to testify, but before you do that, I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the presence of our Vice Chair, Councilmember Rue Landau, who, just as a side note, led a phenomenal hearing this morning on an important issue that also speaks to the future of the city of Philadelphia. So Councilwoman, thank you for being here today, but most importantly, thank you for your leadership. As a new member of City Council who's hit the ground running, folks would never have known you were a new member. So thank you very much. Mr. Maynard, the first panel.
Yes, Mr. Chair. The committee will hear from Tempest Carter from the Commerce Department and Nicodemus Medhio, the Chief Executive Officer of Jump Button Studios. Nicodemus, I apologize if I mispronounced your last name.
Good afternoon. Mrs. Carter,
Good afternoon,
please state
Chairman
your name.
Thomas.
Yeah, please state your name for the record and please begin with your testimony. We're so excited to hear from you and your department as it relates to today's topic.
Absolutely. Hello, my name is Tempest Carter. Good morning or good afternoon, Chairman Thomas and the members of the Committee on Legislative Oversight. My name is Tempest Carter. I am the Director of Strategic Tech Initiatives in the Department of Commerce. I'm here to testify on resolution number 240983, which authorizes a public hearing regarding the results of the PHL Gaming Task Force, as well as related efforts to support gaming in Philadelphia. First, I want to thank the committee for recognizing the tremendous potential of Philadelphia's tech industry. Gaming is a burgeoning subsector that has seen impressive growth in recent years. We've witnessed a rise in gaming-related events, new startups, and educational initiatives, all of which contribute to making Philadelphia an exciting hub for innovation. Our city is also home to a growing number of gaming studios, independent developers, and esports organizations. A notable example is Nerd Street Gamers, also known as Local Host, which brought the nation's first esports campus to Philadelphia in 2021. Since then, we have partnered with Nerd Street Gamers on programming and connected them with the School District of Philadelphia to explore potential after-school activities. We are also committed to supporting and growing the third annual PHL Gaming Conference, scheduled for September 2025, which will be a key opportunity to showcase the city's leadership in that space. Technology is one of the Commerce Department's 5 priority industries. We support Philadelphia's tech ecosystem through business development, attraction, and retention. Our role is to serve as a liaison for businesses looking to invest and expand in Philadelphia. For example, we proactively connect startups and growth stage businesses to capital readiness programs, investors, and accelerators. In addition, we facilitate quarterly tech talks, the next one is February 12th, to foster cross-industry learning and collaboration. We would be happy to host a dedicated gaming tech talks to support industry leaders and aspiring professionals, engage with the latest trends, challenges, and opportunities in that space. Philadelphia is home to a wealth of academic institutions, workforce programs, and boot camps, all of which provide multiple pathways into this industry to quality jobs. In the gaming subsector, software development jobs continue to represent a significant portion of vacant tech positions. Many of the roles do not require a college degree, but some do require specialized skills that can be gained through alternative pathways, such as boot camps or self-taught programming. To further assess and support the growth of the gaming sector, Commerce recently commissioned an economic study of our own, which will provide a detailed landscape analysis and outline how the city should invest and take the sector to the next level. The data confirms what we already know. Philadelphia is currently underinvesting in this space, which is limiting our ability to fully capitalize on the opportunities available. With the right investments, Philadelphia can be the most diverse tech hub in the region. However, we cannot achieve this alone. We need strong public and private sector collaboration and investment to make this vision a reality. We look forward to working alongside our partners to support the continued growth in this sector. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today, and I am happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. We are going to allow the entire first panel to go. Keenan? All right, so you'll after Nicodemus, then you'll provide your testimony, and then after this entire first panel, all 3 of you, then I'll open it up for questions. Nicodemus.
Got it. Hi, everyone. Thank you. My name is Nicodemus Manadou.
I'm sorry, Nicodemus, hold on.
Of course.
For the record, I would like to acknowledge the fact that our 5th District Councilperson, Councilmember Jeffrey J. Young, has joined us. Nicodemus, please state your name for the record, and you can proceed with your testimony.
Definitely. Hi, everyone. My name is Nicodemus Manadou. I am the CEO and co-founder of Jump Button Studio, a games and animation company crafting experiences that are fun to play at home and away from home. I'm also privileged to be a partner and member of the PHL Gaming and Tech Task Force here in the city of Philadelphia. 19 years ago, I first discovered the world of games. I never imagined I would be standing here with City Council working towards vital initiatives that not only empower an industry that saves lives every year, but entertains billions around the world. This is an industry that has grown to be economically bigger than movies and music combined. One that can eject...
Hold on, say that again. It's
This is an industry that has grown to be economically bigger than movies and music combined. One that can eject, at minimum, $80 million into our local economy, and if fostered and empowered efficiently, over $1 billion into our local economy that currently is being missed. We're all here today for a very important impact. When our city succeeds, so does its residents, students, and workforce. We're the experts and leaders shaping this local future presently, and together with unwavering support of City Council member at large, Isaiah Thomas, his Chief of Staff, Don Miller, thank you, we want those gathered here today to take away one thing. Philadelphia is positioned to be a premier destination for gaming careers and economic growth within this decade, should the proper support from our home city be provided to scale this workforce sector. Now, experience. Who am I to be telling you what should be considered or be done within the city to empower new revenue growth and retention? While my career is still very young, I've managed to accomplish something generations of my family never have through an industry I love. Not because of financial opportunity, but because of social barriers and positive impact it's made on me personally. I immigrated to the United States from Monrovia, Liberia, and started my journey on Walsh Road in 2004. Imagine a young 8-year-old kid turning 9 in a new environment with absolutely no friends, no knowledge of how to fit in outside of my home, and struggling to have intentional conversations out of fear of being judged. Once I learned about computers, I found myself browsing the internet, and it did not take long to find games. My world shifted instantly. I made my first friend through playing games, and they happened to live right nearby in the Walsh Road apartments, where I was living. This was my cheat code. I spent the years that followed consuming the space and eventually building in the space at the start of high school. Gained recognition twice at the White House during the Obama presidency, received several local awards such as the Philadelphia Geek Awards, Billy Penn's Who's Next in STEM, 40 Under 40 by the Knight Foundation, Forbes Fellow, and more, all while bootstrapping our games company to over $3 million in revenue, and now working towards closing our $3 million funding round. That's over $5 million by the age of 28 that I've been privileged to empower so many developers and future leaders in our space with. No one in my family has ever been positioned to start and attempt growing the business to that scale that my team and I have managed to accomplish, and this is all thanks to games industry. We've worked with industry leaders across Niantic, the company beyond Pokemon Go, Disney, Paramount, Rovio, and the list goes on, all of whom are also industry leaders dominating our space across the country and empowering their headquartered cities with millions to billions in economic revenue through games. Today, your experts, capable of enabling the same growth for our city, are taking a stand and sharing now more than ever our city needs to empower this sector intentionally so that we can help bring more dollars, excitement, and residents to our city in all the right ways, while mitigating the least amount of risk, because we've seen success over and over again and know just how much what to avoid. So, missed opportunity. Montreal's game industry contributes over $2 billion annually to its local economy. California's gaming sector generates over $50 billion in revenue while empowering over 215,000 local jobs. San Francisco injects over $80 million annually simply through gaming events alone. I could keep going, but I believe our economic point here is clear. Philadelphia is capable of capturing this opportunity for economic growth while presenting thousands of new jobs opportunities. This leads to stronger retention of our competitive talents graduating from Drexel, which you can find on page 4. We're losing over 60% of our talents. We could keep a lot more. Philadelphia is capable of capturing this economic growth. This leads to stronger retention of our competitive talents, which Drexel has one of the top 10 gaming education programs in the country. As of today, 60% of those are leaving. The city does not have enough legislative and financial resources directly tailored for growing the games industry within tech to enable the possibility of growing to capture similar annual dollars here in Philadelphia. And our task force, through Councilmember at Large Isaiah Thomas, is primed to ensure, should you all listen to us here today, our city too can begin to grow a sustainable games industry in Philadelphia that many other cities will one day adopt because we are fortunate enough to have experts at our doorsteps. At minimum, we can most definitely surpass San Francisco's 8 million. As Philadelphia is much bigger, Philadelphia's larger size and lower population density offers more opportunities for expansion and development, including spaces for game studios, esports arena, and tech hubs. And the lower population density also positions a leverage where we can attract more talent and companies seeking affordability. So, in conclusion, it's time for change. Next year, we celebrate a massive milestone within the city, and it will miss on multi-billions of dollars that could have been enabled had we already empowered the games industry before now. Let's make sure we don't miss that opportunity next time. Thank you all for being present here today. Collectively, we, Jump Button, PHL Gaming, and the task force in partnership with Councilmember at Large Isaiah Thomas are ready to ensure our city captures a portion of the games industry that is expected to grow to $470 billion by 2030, with a compound annual growth rate between 8 to 10%. Its current size as of 2023 is $220 billion. An industry that grew to be bigger than movies and music combined, despite being late in the game historically. There's a real opportunity here, and the city should take it seriously. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we open up for questions for this first panel, we're going to allow Mr. Keenan Newton to provide testimony, and then after Mr. Newton provides his testimony, we'll open it up for questions for members of the committee for this particular panel. Mr. Newton.
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kanan Newton, and
I'm sorry, say your first name?
Kanan Newton.
I apologize.
Yeah, no problem. I'm the executive director of the Philly Game Mechanics. Thank you, Councilmember Thomas, and the members of the council for your time today. I am a gameplay programmer with 5 years experience in the industry. I've released 2 games on Steam, and that's the world's largest video game marketplace, online video game marketplace. And I've reached over 30,000 players with these games, with the help of small and medium-sized content creators. And I've led teams of over 15 developers on more than a dozen game projects. And since 2022, I've served as the executive director of Philly Game Mechanics. And Philly Game Mechanics is a project of Culture Trust Greater Philadelphia, which is a 501c3 charitable trust. We support game developers in the Philadelphia region through grants, networking events, skill-building activities, and business programs. And our regular events include Playtest Night, where developers will bring prototypes and demos for live feedback. December 12th in 2024 was our 20th event of 2024, with over 40 attendees that we get just about each session. And in 2024 alone, we've seen 30 games come out of our community, adding to about the 130 games we've developed over our 12-year history. Just to give you an idea of what exactly comes out of our community. So several games we found success. So we have Snake Farm by Heather Flowers with over 14,000 units sold on Steam. We got Sword Car by Space Microscope, boasting 86 very positive reviews on Steam. Timeworks by Starworks Studios with 51 very positive reviews on Steam. And Scattered Verse by Tony Neighbor, which is a mobile title with a 5 out of 5 score on Pocket Gamer. So despite these successes, most games made from within our community, say like 4 out of 130, they'll never see or achieve this commercial traction. Why? A lot of our developers often lack the time and resources to create projects ready for publishers or investors. And that's a big part of game success, is finding those publishers and investors. And while we excel in art and technology, many of us need more support when it comes to marketing, design, and business development. Those are all critical components of success. So, the Philly Game Mechanics, we're currently run entirely by volunteers, and we don't have the capacity to provide mentorship in these areas. To grow, we need a full-time program director who can establish programs to connect developers with the resources they need. So, with more targeted investments and grant opportunities for communities like ours, Philly Game Mechanics will be able to hire full-time staff to launch a learn, build, launch pipeline. Let's see. And this would be our effort to emphasize learning by providing a directory for game business literature, building impactful projects, and consistently bringing games to market. And finally, we would benefit from yearly grant programs targeted directly toward game developers, so our developers could work on their own time and hire contractors to create investor-ready demos. So, in closing, these investments would not only strengthen our community, but also help position Philadelphia as a hub for creative and innovative game development. So, thank you for your consideration and support. Also have like another little extra excerpt to give you some more statistics on how government intervention has helped game studios bring revenue to cities. So in 2022, the NYC Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment introduced a Made in New York marketing credit for digital games, which awarded grants for local indie studios. For example, during the 2022 Game Devs.
Is that something that's referenced in the report? The recommendation you're reading right now, is that referenced in the report?
I do not believe so.
Okay, all right, go ahead, continue.
So in 2022, the 2022 Game Devs of Color Expo, 5 grant recipients collectively received more than $90,000 in funding, providing a crucial support for their development projects. And that's sourced from welcome to nyc.gov. And another example would be Iron Galaxy Studios, which is one of the biggest indie studios in North America. They benefited from the support of the Orlando City government during the relocation to downtown Orlando a few years ago. So in 2022, the City of Orlando's Commercial and Residential Building Agency, the CRA, approved a package of actions to support the relocation of Iron Galaxy Studios to downtown Orlando, including the public transportation incentive and downtown living incentive. And Iron Galaxy Orlando LLC is a development studio that helps other game developers create their games through services, through their services division. And they also create their own original games from time to time. And Iron Galaxy Orlando LLC was approved for up to $135,000 in funding assistance to create 90 new high-value jobs over 5 years. So in conclusion, there are numerous other examples of indie studios in the US and other parts of North America being established and being able to grow thanks to support from local governments. The organizers of Philly Game Mechanics and RJ would be happy to share other examples with the Philadelphia Council if requested.
Thank you, we appreciate it. Couple questions. So first, Ms. Carter, thank you for being here. Thank you for representing the administration. Are there any other members of the administration that's joined us for this hearing today? Do you know? Are you by yourself?
Sorry. I am not by myself.
Awesome.
The Senior Director of Life Sciences, who also oversees my work directly, Dr. Rebecca Grant, is here as
Okay,
well.
awesome. So the reason I asked that is because I had an opportunity to speak with the mayor briefly about gaming and the gaming industry. I had a conversation with her directly, and I really wanted to push the admin to understand where we are as it relates to the unique opportunity we have to court gaming to the city of Philadelphia. Nicodemus, who's my tutor, he had a couple stats and some data that I thought was really important. Nicodemus, can you just the numbers side? So you said something that I asked you to repeat, and I'm going to ask you to kind of go a little more in depth right now. And if it's okay with you, Ms. Carter, I would like to hear from the admin as it relates to your appetite. So Nicodemus, you spoke specifically about music and movies. Is those the two industries you talked about? And then you talked about 3 different areas. You talked about Montreal, you talked about the state of California, and you talked specifically about events in San Francisco. So if you could just elaborate specifically around numbers. What do we know about music and movie compared to gaming? And then what do we know about events in San Francisco, anything that could be replicated? And then, of course, for you, Mrs. Carter, if we can hear the administration's appetite for us to replicate some of this stuff, that would be definitely beneficial. Nicodemus.
Sorry, could you repeat do you want me to
I want numbers. So you said,
Okay,
you
the
told
stats,
us.
got it. So,
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking about Councilmember Young, right? I got to get his vote. So
Got it.
there's one thing
So-
for us to say that, one industry is more lucrative than the other, but this guy's a lawyer. He wants proof. So help us out a little bit. And then I got another
Montreal.
lawyer to my right. I'm struggling right now, right?
Definitely. Montreal, they contribute over $2 billion annually to your local economy through gaming.
Montreal's what we would probably consider a city that's a gaming city right now, right?
Correct.
But we all know Montreal's in Canada.
Correct.
Okay.
California, their gaming sector generates over $50 billion in revenue while employing over 215,000 local residents in gaming. 50 billion. And San Francisco, through events alone, generates over 80 million annually through gaming.
What type of events do they do in San Francisco? Is there anything similar to what we do with the conference?
It's very similar, very similar. We have, out there they have a lot of tech-related events that bleeds into gaming. You have your A16Z, big investment firm out there that hosts, they have your similar San Francisco Tech Week, similar to we have your Philly Tech Week, only because they have a lot of gaming involved components. They are able to generate a lot more than our Philly Tech Week, I'd imagine, generates for our city. So if we were able to empower a lot more gaming activations within our quote-unquote Philly Tech Weeks, I imagine it is very possible we're able to meet the same 80 million annually to bring it to our city locally with the right support at minimum.
So when you talked about San Francisco, California, not the events, when you talked about California and a revenue with a B and a number of jobs, why would a business be incentivized? Like the cost of living in California is so high, right? And California is clearly not as transit as some of our East Coast cities. We're talking a lot about SEPTA, public transportation, people being able to walk places. Why would a person like yourself be in California instead of being in Philadelphia?
Because Philadelphia does not support our ecosystem the right way. I believe one of the hearings you'll hear later will be one of our leaders here in the city with a game company that had to start their journey by leaving the city because they couldn't find the right opportunities here. So if we are unable, similar to the 40% on page 4 in the report, that we're losing to the students that are graduating from Drexel because they don't have, 1, job opportunities that wants to keep them local, or 2, good paying job opportunities, or 3, city incentivized support legislation that empowers the companies that are locally here within that sector to want to remain and empower more job opportunities. So none of those things exist here in Philadelphia, whereas California, they've seen the lucrative wins of the gaming industry, so it is more favored, and they have all of those structures there that empower that.
Councilmember Young has a point of information.
Yeah, that's more of a question. I'll wait till you finish, Councilmember.
You sure?
Yeah, I'm positive.
Go ahead, bro.
So what does the gaming infrastructure look like, right? What is necessary for us to build out, to fit out spaces and places where the gaming industry can thrive here in Philly? So you're looking at what, and I guess I had this question for the Drexel professor as well. But like, if you look at what San Francisco is, as you mentioned, like we're a much larger, denser city, but it has all the resources that are necessary. Like, what are we missing here in Philadelphia for that gaming infrastructure to really thrive?
And when you answered my last question, you referenced page 4 of the report. When you answer Councilmember Young's question, please continue, and the other panelists continue to reference the report. All of the information is here for members. So as you answer, if there's a reference point that happens to be in the report, please include that in your response.
Definitely, definitely. Page 3 of the report will give you a glimpse into why we believe gaming is prime and capable of being grown in our city, whereas what other cities are doing, Nick Madonna, another individual that'll be speaking here, has a lot of thoughts towards the tax incentives, right, that empower the job opportunities that are offered to the people that are hired, the offerings of financial investments, mentorship, et cetera. All of those things are more lucrative out west, essentially, and they are provided and empowered by the city too, in addition to the firms and companies that are fueling the gaming economy financially. So when we look at Philadelphia, we're missing legislative action, right, that empowers tax incentives and other hiring benefits, and funding, a lot of funding.
Just why is that? Why do you think those investments are being made out west versus here in Philly, outside of the tax incentives, right? I mean, a city like Philadelphia, East Coast City, as the council member Thomas was saying, we have everything that any corporation, any business, any investor could need here in Philadelphia. So is it the weather in San Francisco? Like, what is it that makes that more
Their
popular
city
than
understands
something like
the
Philly?
importance of gaming. That's the difference. Their city understands the importance of gaming, and they empower it. That's what's missing here.
I think also from an investment standpoint, when you're looking at various types of investment, they have, it's a center for venture capital. So there are no gaps in terms of what can be invested upon, and it's very easy to kind of tap into those networks out west, particularly in the Bay Area in San Francisco. So when we partnered with Pegasus Tech Ventures, which is a venture capital firm that has, over $1.6 billion out in investment, they're based in San Francisco. And the finale of that Startup World Cup happened in San Francisco. There's just a lot of money there on top of, over 60 years of investment, both in creating the infrastructure, but also from their anchor institutions with their colleges and universities to kind of support tech in general and gaming in particular. And so we're burgeoning and we're building that, but there's still some gaps, particularly when we look at investment for those not raising their first $5,000, $10,000, but are looking for $20 million, $30 million, their first 10, their first 5. It's like a death valley here. And so being able to attract more investment into the city is pivotal, and we can do that through a host of different ways. When you look at Ohio, when you look at New York, when you look at Chicago, they have their own kind of venture funds set up and venture studios set up within the city, and sometimes brokered by the city or state to help to invest in those startup companies. And we don't have that currently in the same way as you would see in California and other places.
So,
Are they those funds you mentioned? They're publicly run like funds essentially.
Oftentimes they're private, so you will have investors coming in, whether they're angel investors or sometimes these places aren't.
I thought so.
They haven't had IPO yet, so they're not on the stock market sometimes.
yeah, I think we're in a
so yeah.
catch-22 situation, though, because if we
Yeah.
say, well, we want to wait for the private sector to be able to come up with the appetite and the money to be able to provide the philanthropy dollars that you're mentioning, then we're going to be waiting a long time because out of the top 10 employers in the city of Philadelphia, only one is in the private sector.
Absolutely.
So we're struggling for reasons that doesn't necessarily relate to this conversation to get that type of appetite for any type of venture capitalist in the
Right.
philanthropy community. And so I think for us, we want to know, and I guess
What
this
we
leads to
can
my
do.
question for you. What do you think, and I know you're limited in what you can respond with, but listening to all of the things that's been discussed thus far, and we're going to go in depth into more dialogue as it relates to the next two panels, what do you think that admin has the appetite for based on what you've heard thus far, as well as what is in the report, specifically recommendations for what local government can do?
Right. So the administration and Commerce in particular, they are deeply interested in making sure that we're able to retain talent and that we're able to partner and create more private and public collaboration so that we're able to platform this city in a way that will attract those dollars that we need, right? And so being able to kind of work together to make sure that the PHL gaming, the third one that happens in September, is even larger, that we're able to create more kind of inroads and collaboration when you are engaging with these smaller startup companies, that we're able to have larger conversations about the incentives that we do have, right? Things that aren't talked about right now is quality jobs. The Quality Jobs Program, which is incredible and gives $5,000 for, new jobs that are life-sustaining. So if you have a company that's growing from 7 to, 15, you can really get dollars that are unrestricted that are going to be able to help you grow. And then we're also doing an incentive study on top of the tech industry study that I'm doing that'll be public in the next few weeks that'll tell what exactly we'll be able to do in terms of recommendations. But I think that we're on the right track in terms of more collaboration between us, making sure that we're getting these anchor institutions to kind of understand and put more kind of skin in the game, and then looking to see what incentives are working and what incentives aren't, so that we're able to create an incentive package to be more attractive as a city.
So I love to hear the appetite, and I'm going to recognize Councilmember Mark Squilla, who's joined us for today's conversation. Just a couple more things that I think we can do that's outside of the report. We're going to continue to examine things in the report on the next panel. We're going to ask for that to be a part of the conversation. We actually spoke with the folks at the Library Foundation, and we're hoping, and of course we're not going to ask you to answer this right now, we're hoping that we can work with the admin, the Library Foundation, the director of the library, to begin to see what a partnership could look like to providing gaming spaces in our libraries. Our libraries are unique spaces. On our next panel, we're going to talk about some of the professions that's in the gaming industry, because if, again, I can play a little 2K and a little Madden, but that's where it stops for me, and I'm sure most folks are limited like I am as it relates to understanding the professions in the gaming industry. But I think a lot of people, when we think about gaming, we think about the act of playing a video game, which could fit at a rec center or something like that. But if I'm a programmer, if I'm a developer, if I'm a professional in the gaming industry, I probably would rather be in a library than a rec center, right? I probably need more quiet than chaos. So I'm wondering if, for a little bit of homework, we could see if the admin would entertain or have an appetite for collaborating with the Library Foundation as well as the library to provide more tools, programs, resources, and initiatives in our libraries so that our libraries can become a gaming hub for young people in neighborhoods across the city of Philadelphia. That's one thing. You mentioned the gaming conference. That's the next thing. The third thing, if we do get to the point where we entertain the idea of a big developmental project, folks are talking about East Market Street in South Philadelphia. If those things happen, we would ask that the admin include some of that stuff include gaming in some of those negotiations, because gaming can be that experience that changes a corridor, right? It's one thing to say that I want to have a retail. Retail is great, right? Like, I'm not going to never knock retail, but I know for me, I like to spend my money on an experience.
Yeah.
right? And what the gaming industry often offers is a specific, unique experience. And I think that's what we should be thinking about as we continue the innovative thinking that the admin has led since our mayor has been sworn in. That's the type of push we want to see to try to make gaming a priority. Chair recognizes Councilmember Swilla, and then we're going to try to move on to the next panel.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And you actually took the words out of my mouth, because I was thinking of even like the Wanamaker building and reimagining that, and looking at spaces that we could say, is there an opportunity if we build it, they will come, right? Is there an area where we're saying, who would want to rent a space like this? Or I remember when in South Philly, they were talking about maybe a 5,000 seat arena for gaming 3 or 4 years ago or 5 years ago, and then somehow that fell off the radar. But I think that's something that it's a possibility to get a venue just for those type of events, but only if we have enough people that are in the city interested in doing that. And I guess at some point somebody thought that I guess it wasn't profitable, or whatever the reason was, it didn't happen. But when we re-envision East Market or South Philly or some of these other places, is it possible to connect them with people who would be willing to lease spaces that had this type of setup in there? And if we did, we could even help market that, right, as a city, and saying, all right, there's a need, right? And if we build it, they will come, and we'll be able to fill these spaces. Because the worst possible thing is, I remember we did this with, some of our other buildings, and we were building out life science buildings, and then we weren't able to fill any of them, right? So it became a challenge. But if we were able to build out some of these spaces here and say, all right, by working with you guys, working with the chairman and the mayor's office, saying, let's look to build these out, and let's make sure that we could have the ability to do that, so that we could attract you guys and other people in the business to come there and say, we're going to rent these, we're going to use these places, and then it becomes a hub, right? And that's what I think we need to do. And I think thinking outside the box and being creative about it is something we as a city could do as we continue our planning process. So.
I know the Commerce Department is committed to exploring and figuring out how we can better attract and retain and grow tech in all its spheres, including gaming. So I'm really excited to see. I look at this as kind of a springboard for us to jump into deeper collaboration, right? Utilizing this report, utilizing the report that will come out in a few weeks around tech, in a more broad sense, and figuring out what we can do together to make sure that we have a thriving innovation hub within the city. And we do have EDA, designation as a tech hub. So how do we utilize that to be able to draw more light into what is happening in gaming and what's happening in various other sectors within tech? I think that is going to take creativity and work, but I think that we can do it, and I'm excited for us to be on that partnership together.
And if I may, I believe COVID impacted some of those arena gaming plans. And pages 12 through 17 in the gaming report also dives in so much more detail around ways in which the city can collaborate with existing experts here to more empower, bring in, at minimum, 80 million into the local economy, and high 1 billion or more into the local economy.
Thank you. As we close this panel out, I just want to ask, I want to thank you both. I want to ask you if there's anything else you want to add. Nicodemus, I think you blew a lot of us away when you talked about the fact that the gaming industry is more than a music and movie industry combined. That creates the appetite for local government to do our due diligence to attack this. But as we close out, if there's anything you want to add, specifically any highlights in a report that you didn't get to discuss that you might want to put out there, and anything around tax credits as well too. I think it'll be good for the members of council to hear about recommendations around tax credits, and then we can get ready for the next panel. Thank you both.
Thank you. From the commerce perspective, without revenue being here and being able to have like a full proposal, we wouldn't be able to condone any tax credit but I am really interested in what broader incentives we'll be able to create, maybe together, that go beyond the tax credit issue and maybe more into generative grants and larger kind of fiscal investment. And so I'm really excited about that. And when I look at this sort of investments that we need to make, I look at the median tech income in Philadelphia, which is right now at 109,000. It can go up to 141,000 depending whether it's research and development. And I think that that is revolutionary when we're talking about our most marginalized communities, getting access to that type of life-sustaining wage. We see the fruit of what gaming and what tech can do in this city. It can make millionaires out of our neighborhood residents. And so I'm very interested and very committed to figuring out the ways in which we can kind of grow that pie so that we're able to equitably distribute it more.
Thank you. Thank you, and thank you to the app for representing the mayor. Thank you.
Thank you.
My colleagues will definitely speak much better than I can on a lot of direct city support. I've said a lot of what I had to say, but thank you, especially Councilmember at Large Isaiah Thomas, for spearheading and being committed to the PHL Gaming Task Force and the events we have done to be able to put together this report and be very authentic and true to what and how we can impact Philadelphia locally.
Great job. Thank you both. And
thank you for
we'll
your
ask that you
leadership
stay
here.
around and listen to the other panels so we
Absolutely.
can figure out how we can work with the admin to turn some of this stuff into action items.
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Mr. Maynard, will you please call the members of the next panel to testify before us?
Of course, Mr. Chair. The committee will now hear from Professor Robert Lloyd and Adrian Sandoval. Gentlemen, if you'll make your way to the podium.
Good afternoon to you both. Thank you for taking the time for being here. Thank you for being patient. We appreciate your patience. Please begin by stating your name for the record, and you can begin with your testimony. We'll allow you both to testify, and then after you both finish your testimony, one after the other consecutively, we'll open it up for questions from members of the committee. Thank you both.
All right, excellent. My name is Robert Lloyd, professor at Drexel University.
My name is Adrian Sandoval. I'm an adjunct professor from Drexel University and also the chair of the Philadelphia chapter of the International Game Developers Association.
So I have graphics that I believe you have printouts of that will have additional information to accompany my testimony. First, I want to thank Councilmember Thomas, his Chief of Staff, Don Miller, and the Council for giving us this opportunity today. My name is Rob Lloyd. I started at Temple University as a studio artist and joined a local simulation company, creating a variety of training and simulation projects, including the award-winning Wild Earth at the Philadelphia Zoo and the NASTAR Training Center in Southampton, PA, which has trained civilian and military pilots, plus hundreds of people preparing to go to suborbital flights with Virgin Galactic and others. I joined the faculty at Drexel a decade ago and have since become a program director for the Game Design and Production Program, or GDAP as I'll refer to it, the undergraduate degree program, which is what brings me here today. The digital media department, which houses the game design program, began as a program itself under the film department over 25 years ago and has since grown to be its own department with multiple degree programs underneath it, including the game program, as well as a master's and PhD programs. You can be a doctor of digital media with Drexel. This year, we will graduate our 25th class, including about 40 game majors, with their partners from music industry programs, custom design major, and computer science. The 7 current senior game teams represent about 75 graduating students looking to enter the game development industry. The game program currently has about 200 majors, plus a new minor that we've opened, and hundreds of computer science majors that are taking game-related concentrations. It's a lot of students studying game development. The Drexel Game Design Program is ranked by the Princeton Review as a top game design program in the nation. We've been consistently in the top group from when there were only a handful of digital content creation degree programs in the nation to now when there are hundreds, and I'm very proud of that consistency. Our cohort continues to grow and evolve, and there's demographics on the slide graphic. While not yet a mirror of society, we are trending in the right direction with increased gender, racial, ethnic, and neurodiversity. This diversity of voices is important for many reasons, but for today I want to point to how that diversity feeds the indie game dev scene, and with countless untold stories that make the indie art scene so vital and vibrant. Our students come from all over the globe, but about 40% of them come from the state of Pennsylvania, and most of them within the immediate region. However, over half of them leave the state of Pennsylvania upon graduation, and you heard in the report has the larger number of 60% leave the city of Philadelphia. They leave the state, they leave the city to find work and build their careers elsewhere, and I think this council can help change that. And this report and this effort is the beginning of it. Together, we can improve the business environment to support more game dev and related companies growing in the area, providing more game dev opportunities for students in Drexel's 100-year-old cooperative education program, providing more opportunities for graduates to stay in the area, working for a more robust local game dev industry. Our students work for small indies, companies, mid-sized companies, all the way up to major AAA studios and Fortune 500 companies. Beyond a couple of small indies in Philadelphia and other limited opportunities in the region, the vast majority of those companies and opportunities for our cooperative education students, as well as our graduates, are elsewhere. Our students have started companies, some of them incredibly successful, but the most successful have started them elsewhere. Greg Labanoff graduated from digital media before the game program was specifically branched off. He graduated in 2014. He is a Philadelphia native. He has his company based in Vancouver, Canada. His titles are critical and commercial successes, and his latest title, Beastie Ball, even calls back to the Philadelphia sports scene, and he has a character based on Gritty. Philadelphia Voice just had an article on him recently. Dan Fernacey, a digital media graduate from 2011, has grown his Rivals of Ether game into a franchise with multiple titles under that franchise and an exciting esports scene attached to it. We've actually held esports tournaments at Drexel using his titles. His company is based in Seattle, Washington. Drexel has an on-campus incubator, the Entrepreneurial Game Studio, or EGS. Over the last decade, with limited funding and resources, our game faculty, Dr. Frank Lee and Tony Rowe, have helped launch a dozen or so student companies representing over 50 students and a dozen or two commercial titles available on a variety of commercial marketplaces. Some of those will be represented in testimony later today. While startups are inherently risky, only about 3 of those studios have persisted past graduation. The learning experience of that startup is invaluable no matter what, but I believe this council, this effort, this report is the beginning of increasing the success rate of those locally EGS-launched companies. Many game developers from industry have come to Philadelphia for family connections, cost of living, and quality of life. I'm constantly running into new people who have come here for those reasons, to bring their industry here. These are factors that are not easily created out of thin air. Philadelphia has proudly built them up over time. With additional support from this council, from this effort, we can jumpstart and support the growth of the existing indie game development community that's already here into a healthier, sustainable, profitable, and noteworthy industry. Importantly, most indie game companies survive through a combination of their own original intellectual property, their own original titles that they build. Predominantly, they're keeping their lights on through contract work and grant work. That original IP is an iterative, experimental, tricky process. The ideas may not make it past that initial stage, yet they still need to be funded to keep the lights on. Philadelphia talent from companies that can't keep the lights on find other solutions, from grad school to full-time work in game studios or other work, usually out of state. At the 2024, and this is where the graphics attached to my testimony are important, particularly, at the 2024 Game Developers Conference, GDC 24, in San Francisco, I attended a presentation by LaToya Peterson, who made the gap between funding models for games and film very clear to me. The limited, mostly self-funded ways to get a game made pale in comparison to the many ways a film might be funded, especially smaller indie-based productions. And on the graphic, you'll see that it covers personal savings, friends and family, crowdfunding, angel investors, and institutional investors. Only 2 of those are really serious sources of funding. However, on the next graphic on the next page, you'll see a wide variety, almost illegible, and depending on how large the print is you have, of the many ways that films can be funded. With the current mammoth scale of AAA consolidation within game development, making huge publishers even larger and therefore less risk averse, there is an opportunity for smaller studios to create more inventive, more risky, more personal content to appeal to a wide variety of underrepresented audiences. Funding for those projects can reflect the same variety of sources already used for smaller films. And this you'll see listed in the report as one of the many ideas that the task force put together of looking for existing art funding mechanisms and making sure that they are open to and receptive to game companies getting that same art-based funding. I think there are new things that we can build from scratch, but I think there are existing systems that game development can be included into. The last few slides, graphics that you'll have, show a variety of Drexel-related student-nurtured companies from the EGS incubator. There is vast potential. That student-based teams, there are multiple of them, but they are only part of the vast potential in the Philadelphia region for new companies to create new stories for a global audience. I'll touch on a couple of those briefly, though some of them will be again represented by their own testimony later. These are some of the latest releases in this one graphic showing Starhound, Jubilite, Trouble in Tornado Time, Timeworks, Lockjaw, and Boned. These are releases from EGS teams, just from the last year or so. In fact, one team, Starworks Studios, is not here to testify today because they're at Super MagFest in the Maryland area, in the National Harbor of Maryland, sharing their game with a wider community through that Super MagFest conference and exhibition. They're a current senior team. They're actually excused from class today to go and participate in that conference and showcase their senior project. Drexel Split-Side Games, who will be represented again later in a moment, with their award-winning title, Fling to the Finish. This started as a 4-week in-class project within the classroom. They took it to EGS to develop it further, and then in pursuit of a publisher, continued to work on it as their capstone senior project. Ryan can elaborate further, but there are 4 years of effort before it took them to get to a publisher deal. And while this continues to be developed, the team has had to find alternate paths to make a living, at least for now. But that's a company that is on the cusp of having great success. Without further support, it won't have that further success. The last one I have to show is Drexel's Pharaohhound Studios and their award-winning title, Sons of Ra. At the last E3, before that conference was shut down years ago in response to COVID, as events like E3 shift and disappear, student teams like this who won their last college game competition in 2019, there is a call for new methods for highlighting and jumpstarting new game dev companies to keep these industries growing and with the high potential of all the small to medium-sized indie studios that can really bring innovative content out into the world. So in closing, I want to thank again the council member, Isaiah Thomas, and his chief of staff, Don Miller, and the entire PHL Gaming Task Force for this opportunity, for all the effort that's gone into this report. And I just want to close by saying that with enhanced access to existing arts-related funding mechanisms, city-fostered B2B connections, and evolving funding models closer to the multifaceted indie film development model, the City of Philadelphia can help create a game development hub that the world will pay attention to. Thank you for your time.
So as mentioned, my name is Adrian Sandoval. I'm the chair for the Philadelphia chapter of the International Game Developers Association. I've been the chair for that chapter since 2016. However, I have been involved in the community and part of the IGDA chapter since 2007 at the earliest. I'm currently an adjunct professor of game design and history at Drexel University. I'm also an active game developer myself, having been working in games in the Philadelphia region for nearly 20 years now. I consider myself fortunate to have been part of such an active and vibrant community for as long as I have, but I've been frustrated in that time frame as well, and I want to talk briefly about those frustrations today. I'm frustrated because despite the large number of talented artists and incredible games developed in our city year after year, a lot of which were mentioned by Rob here and also many more even before that, the community of Philadelphia is largely unknown in the wider games industry. It is sort of a running joke, and has been a running joke for a decade or more now, that anytime any of us go out of state, any of my colleagues in the developer community, we're told by other people that we talk to, oh, we didn't know they made games in Philadelphia. I've heard that time and time again over the years. This lack of visibility is not just a funny anecdote, however. I think it is a larger symptom, a symptom of a larger problem, that our community has been underserved and unable to gain a foothold within the larger games industry, despite having the same level of talent and expertise as the other major tech and gaming hubs within the United States. I'm frustrated because across 2 decades, I've watched promising studios with successful first-time game launches having to close their doors a couple of years later. They're unable to find adequate funding or support to keep their studio afloat and healthy despite initial critical and financial success. Rob mentioned a couple of great examples. I can point to a couple of others. Cypher Prime Studios, Final Form Games existed for maybe a year or two, some getting 1 or 2 titles out the door that, again, critical and financial success, but just not able to get over that hump to continue that success. And I think that speaks to the difficulty of being able to maintain a sustainable place of business within our city. The handful of studios that are currently open struggle to cover the operating costs necessary to be able to sustain themselves to their next contract, provided they can find one, let alone be able to grow their business and hire new talent for bigger projects. Meanwhile, veteran talent cultivated here then leave for opportunities elsewhere in the United States or abroad. I'm frustrated that while many schools, such as my institution, which Rob spoke to within our community, teach and nurture hundreds of future game developers, or many institutions outside of Drexel that are also teaching game development as well here, but the students there are then forced to find entry-level jobs or unpaid internships on the West Coast because of lack of opportunity or mentorship in this area. This, to me, is a great disservice to our students. They take a great risk even when they find the rare paid opportunity within the larger tech hubs because the cost of living is so high and the future is uncertain. For our city, the lack of both new and veteran talent also represents a huge cultural loss. This is the next generation of artists, engineers, and entrepreneurs. They should be able to find stable work while at the same time showcasing their unique voice within that work. Our city is known for its breadth and diversity of its art and its culture. And games are just another vector for that as well. And it's necessary that is cultivated as such. In order to do that, we need to be able to maintain both our current and future talent. You know, people often say games are our future. As a historian, I think this is a misnomer. I think that the fact is our games are our present. And they have been our present for decades. They've been a vibrant culture for over 40 years now, with billions of players from all walks of life now actively playing games. As a market, I think there have been challenges in recent years, but one thing is certain, games are not going away. So my goal as the chair of our IGDA chapter has been twofold. 1, to give Philly a larger voice within the global games industry, and 2, to build a better and more sustainable path for current and future game developers in this area. I believe the report and many of the items that have been brought up by the previous panel and by Rob are the first steps towards addressing these long-standing issues. I'm very proud to have been a part of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Couple questions. Try to be as brief as possible in your responses so we can get as many questions in as possible.
Sure.
A person graduate. First of all, thank you for what you do as educators and thought leaders in the city of Philadelphia. A person graduates from Drexel with a degree. You mentioned an entry-level job. Based on the testimony that's been provided today, anywhere from 54 to 60% of the students who graduate from Drexel leave Philadelphia, which is terrible. But you said they're going to another business for an entry-level job. There are so many people who do not understand the employment hierarchy within the gaming community, right? So if I was an educator and I was going to an entry-level job, I might start off as a substitute teacher or a student teacher. Then I become a full-time teacher. Then I become an administrator. Then I become a principal. Then I'm trying to be you see, so you get the hierarchy. And I'm not necessarily saying it works unilaterally that way in the gaming industry, but help people who have no idea. Because whenever I talk about gaming, the first thing people think I'm talking about is sports betting type gaming. And then I say, oh, no, not that type of gaming, esports. Oh, so the kids who play the video games. No, it's more than just a kid sitting on a PlayStation or Xbox playing the video games. So for those people who only know that side of gaming, talk a little bit about what those entry-level jobs are, how much they pay, and where can you ascend to as you get more entrenched in a gaming profession.
I'll do my best to respond to that. Game development is a multifaceted effort. It takes a wide variety of skills, and so Drexel is a generalist to specialist program. We take in students and introduce them to all facets of game development, and so you're talking about audio, writing, lighting, cinematography, you're talking about 3D modeling, animating, creating the bones or the rig, the skeleton of that character that you can then animate it from. There are the encounters themselves. I believe Keenan earlier testified he is a gameplay engineer. He is someone who creates the rules.
All right, so this is what we need you to do. Act like we're your students, but not the smart ones. All right, take a couple steps back, slow down a little bit. I understand what you're saying, and the two lawyers up here might understand what you're saying as well too. But this conversation is for the greater good of the entire city. So someone's gonna watch this on YouTube in a week or two, and they have no idea about the gaming industry, but Councilman Thomas told them to watch the hearing to get a better understanding. So if you could just slow down and just start all over again so everybody can understand, and also speak a little more into the mic as well too.
I'll do my best.
Thank you, Professor.
When I speak to high school students who come and visit and during open house, I introduce them to a couple different things, and I can share this with you later, but there's a great designer out of Montreal, actually, used to work at Ubisoft, that at cocktail parties would have to explain what they do. And they were a game designer, and so they would explain to the concept of a door and what a game designer, how they thought about a door and how you would decide whether a door needed to be in the game or not. And then the person who was doing the concept art would draw different styles of door. And then somebody who would be an art director would pick one of those styles, and then a 3D modeler would create that door. All of these things are just taking simple objects and trying to figure out the many roles it takes to build these things. And our students often enter as gamers, as consumers of games. And the major pivot that we help them make is to turn them into makers, to understand, to take that box apart and rebuild it themselves. So the multiple roles, it is like many art fields, a master and apprentice kind of situation where you've got to enter as an entry-level junior artist who is following along with the master, trying to figure out how they do what they do, slowly working on the small, safe parts from an entry-level point of view until the master trusts them enough to start working on the heavier lifting things. Those jobs are incredibly hard to find. This is one of the valuable elements of the Drexel program in that we have the co-op program that allows them to go out and work while they're students and work as interns within the industry. But one of our challenges within that space is identifying enough of those opportunities, especially enough local opportunities that are paid internships to give them that entry-level competency so they can be more competitive for the higher level positions. But entry-level jobs, from quality assurance, where you're just stress testing the game to make sure it doesn't break, or how it breaks. You're trying to find out how it breaks. That can be 25, 30K a year, which is barely a salary. All the way up to a entry-level programmer who is fluent in multiple languages. They potentially might be able to walk into something as a junior programmer, 80, 90, 100K above. But it's a full spectrum of that entire, from 20K to 100K. But again, it is the opportunities. If there were more local companies that had the wherewithal to bring in additional talent, they could be bringing in our students to give them that entry-level experience.
How do
that
we
would let
get
them
more of those
advance.
local companies? How do we do that? How do we get more local companies to provide these opportunities?
Well, as you'll hear from other testimony today, and as I mentioned in my testimony, that it is a mix. I recall numbers from I think it was an IGDA, or it might have been one of the other industry reports from 2014, that over 50% of independent game developers made less than $500 a year on their own intellectual property. But those same companies earned per employee around $64,000 a year by doing contract work and grant-based work for outside clients, basically. So they weren't doing their own work. That's really hard to launch your own intellectual property. And so making those business connections so that a young up-and-coming studio can connect to larger studios to get that contract work. I hold myself up as a poster child for my students in that I worked in military and aerospace training and simulation. I've done educational projects. I've done marketing-based projects. I've done themed entertainment for theme parks and museums. The skill set that game development has is a gateway to pretty much any industry. And so I look at the ed, bed, and meds of this area and go, all of those are industries that need my game development students to make experiences for them, whether it's a pharmaceutical company who needs a game on their trade show booth, or another one that needs to have a game that will teach a medical student or a doctor to how a medicine works within the body. All of these are potential spaces, but making those connections takes existing connections. And that's where I think this council and the various constituencies that you are connected with makes for a very fruitful area for growth of getting young student companies like you'll see represented today connected to existing large companies that need this kind of multimedia support. They're not thinking, oh, they don't need 2K basketball. They don't need those big AAA things. They need some specific interactive experience in a game-like way to speak to their constituents, to speak to their audience. Our students, and not just, I'm here representing Drexel today, but I'm also part of the IGDA with Adrian, and with the loss of UArts was tragic, but Moore, Temple, Haverford, there are multiple institutions in this area. There's so many educational institutions, and all of them have some form of digital content creation, which is just a larger umbrella term to talk about game development and film and animation and all the things that are done with the same toolkits that we use in games. There are a lot of potential employees and contractors to build this incredible interactive way to educate, to spread the word on whatever it is a company needs to communicate. So lots of possibilities there.
To just quickly add to what Rob is saying, I 100% agree that I think you mentioned that we're known as like eds, meds, and beds, and there is opportunity for game development there. You had mentioned that a lot of people think about people playing video games at home as part of the entertainment industry, but you know, we teach serious games at Drexel University, games for training, education, and those things, and there are opportunities within these other sectors to connect game developers so that they can continue to grow their company. Rob also had mentioned these different funding resources that you see for other media that are considered arts and culture, such as film. You and other cities have been investing in games as a culture, thinking about them in the same way that we think about like film and media and such. And some of the places that Kanan had mentioned earlier, some of the things that have been mentioned in the report is looking at these other cities where we've seen success, where developers are able to kind of get over that hump of their first game because they're able to receive extra cultural funding on top of, again, looking into serious games and contract work that we could also help connect with. So those are all the different elements I think that that we could see as helpful. And again, kind of getting beyond what you had said before about the perception of games as, beyond just entertainment industry.
Councilmember Young.
Thank you, Councilmember. Just a point of information from earlier when you mentioned having conversations with the administration, the Library Foundation, and the director of our libraries here. I've been in conversations with the administration about developing and building a brand new C.S. Moore library. And the idea is to create spaces such as these gaming spaces that are 21st century spaces for our children, for the community to have. And so, whatever support that you all need in dealing with the library system, I'll be willing to lend that support because our libraries are the perfect spaces to have these types of studios, these types of spaces, not for just children to just play video games, right, but also to learn how to develop these games as well. So I'm very, very supportive of that idea. And we need to build these new facilities in our city to keep up with some of the other cities that are taking this industry from us. But I do have a question. I'm just looking for some data, I guess, on the commercial success of some games. Like, what's the percentage of those games that are being developed that actually make it to market? And I'm looking for that information because I'm trying to figure out how as a city do we invest in this space, right? Do we invest in individual entrepreneurs, right? Or do we invest in creating the spaces, or do we invest in the tax credits? Like, how do we invest in this particular space? What's the best model? What's the best way?
All of the above. Too much to ask. So I think there are multiple avenues. One, if I may, quick aside on the library concept. I often talk to prospective students that math is a core element. It's a gateway element into game development and in whatever facet. And game development, like you see in youth programs around robotics, the Lego First competitions that are often happening in library spaces, games are also a gateway into STEM fields across the board because of the variety, or STEAM rather, with the art injected into that, gateway into that space. In terms of support, I will defer in some detail to the further testimony from the studio members and the companies that will follow later. But I think it is a combination of investing in those business-to-business connections to get young studios more contract work to help them keep the lights on as they build their studio capacity and stability, which gives them freedom to invest more into their own intellectual property. But then also there is, as Adrian talked about, the reason we have built as the IGDA a campaign called Philly Makes Games as a hashtag, there's for the YouTube crowd, hashtag Philly Makes Games, is an awareness issue. And so part of that investment is, when I go to GDC, the Game Developers Conference in San Francisco, which is the premier networking event of the industry, even internationally, not just nationally, and I go into the pavilion where all the state and country-based pavilions are, I can look at $1 million booth or whatever it costs. I'm sure it was quite expensive, from New York State, which has done a lot of investing into the game space. It's already been mentioned by Nicodemus and others. All the way to Canada. The entire country of Canada is represented by a booth that probably cost them $15,000. But we can't be there as Philadelphia because nobody here individually has that $15,000. And so there is a larger awareness so that people know that Philly makes games. and that we're making a lot already, and we can make even more. So I think it's a multifaceted approach of awareness as well as support of those young companies that will build a critical mass of successful revenue generation and jobs here in the city. Adrian.
I mean, I 100% agree. I will say, as outside of Drexel, as the chair for the IGDA representing game developers, my interest is to see that future game developers have a job to go to. That's my number one concern. So, and I really do believe that we've had companies before start who have critical success, who have financial success, who, as I mentioned before, just haven't been able to go over that hump. I know that the people who will follow us, the developers and CEOs of some of those companies, will be able to speak to some of that difficulty. And I 100% believe that investment in them and growing something here organically is the path. That is the direction that I see going forward.
Thank you.
Sure.
It was mentioned that some of the barriers, I guess, to the industry is publishers, investors, marketing. And this is a market, like the gaming industry is a market just like any other industry, right? So you're going to have, and this is America, so capitalism is it, right? So what do you do how can you as a smaller, I guess, I don't know, I want to call them gamer, but what do you call someone in this industry, right? Starting up in this industry, how do you stand out? How do you get yourself into a particular space that these investors, these publishers, these folks who put games to market can see your work and recognize your work? Outside of going to those conferences, what other things are available?
Sure. I mean, number one has always been social media. Social media has been the biggest thing for small companies to try and carve a niche out for themselves. And in the independent space, when you're starting a studio yourself, the best way to stand out has become high quality art, a very good trailer. The difficulty there, though, however, is that you kind of need that initial funding to be able to even develop a proof of concept. So this is why, again, a lot of cities and countries have started small funding boosts, even just an initial package of money to a new company to allow them to be able to have that investment to create something that they can then show to potential investors, developers, to be able to create that first thing. I also know that some countries, such as I believe it was New Zealand, started where a returning company, after they've made their first game, might actually be able to have an ascending level of funding to keep that studio going to get to the next contract.
And last question, is there does your organization help create some kind of pitch deck for some of these developers to give to or send to some of these larger institutional investors, other investors, to say, hey, this is what we can do, this is what I can do, this is what I've done? Is that infrastructure in place?
So the IGDA has some resources like that on their website for the national organization. I can say that the primary goal of the IGDA, which is nationally based but has chapters all around the world to support, depending on what the individual needs of that community are, right? So my coming here to testify is an example of that sort of advocacy. Primarily, those kinds of resources have traditionally been a community effort. So there have been, I know certain publishers like Raw Fury and Humble Games actually share their pitch decks online for people to see. And then organizations like ours or the Philly Game Mechanics will then take those and then share them with their smaller community. So it's not necessarily the purview of our organization. However, our organization does try to connect those resources to the larger the community at large.
And our students are also taught how to build those decks, and because in our studio-based courses where they're building larger projects, they're pitching those projects all the time. And part of that is having an awareness of the market aspect and pitching to an investor or a publisher. So that's part of the education aspect.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Councilmember.
Thank you, Councilman. As we close out this panel, just a couple things real quick. I'm wondering, is there anything from the report that you didn't get a chance to highlight that you feel like should be put on the record? And, talk to us a little bit about local tax cuts and what that would do for the industry as well, too.
one of the things that I'm really excited about with this report is the wide variety of options to work and grow the community. Part of actually what I wanted to add into an earlier question was how do you get recognized? How do you get found? And some of that is through, we're representing the makers of games, but part of this push includes the playing of games through esports and the supporting of that.
You said part of the push is what?
Part of the report discusses esports and the playing of games, and so part of what we've done at Drexel, like I mentioned earlier, Rivals of Ether, which is an esports game built by one of our alum, we've had esports events using that title. And one of the things that I would love to see, and as I think part of the esports portion of this, is having local esports related games being played at these events, and not just top tier AAA games made elsewhere, but having local games part of that esport initiative. I think the element of tax credits and the B2B connections and the existing arts funding that is available being open to game projects are all important elements of making it fiscally possible to have a young company survive past that critical first couple of years until they can really get on solid footing and persist. Some of those things are short run, but can help them get going. So to me, it's about building that awareness and building those connections between all the large industry that's already here. Comcast Labs is part of Comcast, the larger corporation, and we have alum there working on a variety of non-game entertainment projects.
Let me cut you off right there.
Sure.
So with that concept in mind, my team and I were thinking about U-City Science Center, right, which is an example of a KOZ zone and a university and government partnership focused on basic research as well as job creation. Clearly, that's mostly for life sciences. What would it look like, or could we expand that or have a similar type of portfolio as a partnership with Drexel, looking at the city, a KOZ zone, local university, job creation, and all parties involved providing support, and this possibly being a pilot for a space that can put us in a position to help grow the industry. Just random idea, thoughts?
I'm intrigued. I can't suddenly elevate myself to the position of president of Drexel University.
And I can't be a district council person to provide a KOZ zone, so we're definitely speaking in a hypothetical here,
But
right?
I love the idea. I love the idea. I've actually, I'm on a co-op is a huge part of what Drexel University represents and offers an educational experience. And I've been part of a co-op committee within Westfall College, the Art and Design College within Drexel, working specifically to identify other ways and partnerships that we can build more paid internship possibilities. And exactly the kind of partnership that you're talking about, to me, would feed right into that conversation. And I would be very excited to continue that conversation about that. I think that'd be very interesting.
Amazing. All right, so I'm gonna let you go. This is what I'll ask you to say as your goodbye. 54 to 60% of students who are within the department eventually leave when they get their degree. Talk to us in comparison to other majors, right? So if I didn't know any better, I would say, oh yeah, well, everybody leaves, right? 54 to 60% of people who get their law degree from Temple leave the city. 54 to 60% of the people who get their bachelor's degree in education go teach somewhere else. So how alarming are those numbers? Are they really bad? Are they the norm? Should we be worried, or is it to be expected? And that'll be my last question, and we can move on to the next panel after this.
I thank you for the opportunity overall and for that last question. What those numbers don't represent is of the 40% who stay in the city, of the roughly 50% that stay in the state overall, a much smaller fraction of them stay in game development. And so those numbers don't represent who stays in game development in the city. That just means who stays and finds some way to pay their bills.
But most of them won't be in gaming.
And I come from a generation where everybody around me, very few of them went on to actually do what they studied to do. I sit before you, a Master of Fine Arts of metalsmithing from Tyler School of Art. But I found my way into digital storytelling and making themed entertainment, and that's how I run a game department now. It breaks my heart to see so many of my students with incredible talent. What we haven't even addressed today is the challenge that our international students, which is maybe only 10% of my program specifically, but sometimes they're excellent talent. And there are visa challenges where they not only have to find a job, but they have to find one fast before their time runs out on their visa. To watch incredible talent have to not only leave the city, leave the state, but leave the country that we trained, that we helped get to that high level of excellence. They have to go. They have to find some other way to make a living. And that spreads out to too many of my students. They want to be in the area. They have family ties. They have financial cost of living. They like the area. They want to be here. They can't afford to stay in the industry, so they have to find a different path. And that number is way less than 40%. Thank you.
Thank you
for the time.
Thank you both. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for sharing your expertise. Thank you for all you do to make our city great. And we want to continue to work together and explore what we can do to expand the program and, of course, provide opportunities for the students who go to the program so we can put them in a position where they can stay here in much larger numbers and, of course, work in the industry. So thank you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you both. Mr. Maynard, will you please call the final panel for today's hearing? I want to, go ahead, Mr. Maynard.
Yes, of course, Mr. Chair. For our final panel, we'll hear from Ishmael Shahid from Nerd Street / local host, and Nick Madonna, the founder of PHL Collective.
I know that we have a
Gentlemen,
number
if
of
you'll come to the
people.
table.
Go ahead, Mr. Maynard, I'm sorry.
Oh, please, Mr. Chair.
I know we have a number of people who signed up for public comment. How many is that, Mr. Maynard?
There are 3 names on public comment, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so we're going to ask the people on the public comment side to try to limit your remarks to about 3 minutes per person, if that's okay, so you can kind of prepare yourself for your remarks to be around 3 minutes per person. In this panel, please state your name for the record, and you can begin your testimony. We'll allow you both to testify consecutively one after the other.
Absolutely. First of all, good afternoon, Councilman Thomas and members of the council. My name is Ishmael Hall. I'm the head of venues for Nerd Street, which currently has me supporting other great leaders in the Denver area, and we also the Philadelphia area and the Glassboro area for Rowan University. Before I begin, you made a point about saying folks are going to be watching this on YouTube, so let me explain what localhost is. So localhost is an esports LAN center. So we do tournaments, events, birthday parties. We also work with third parties to, host events that they may want to do. A lot of these great people behind me that create their own games, they actually were able to use this facility during PHL Gaming to show off their games that they created to different people in the community, and also to inspire the youth to, go on that same route as well too. Our local venues that I previously mentioned all offer unique experiences tailored to the communities in Denver. We see a strong focus on high-level competitive esports in which we're able to support groups striving for top performance, while our Philadelphia and Rowan properties focus on building diverse participation and skills include broadcasting, streaming, event management, and community engagement, and a lot of the other things that folks were talking about today, my fellow peers were talking about earlier today. For our first university property in Glassboro provides a crucial, dedicated space where students can practice and hone their skills without worries of equipment limitations, making it an attractive option for high school students to have a place to go to after they graduate to go for a degree for esports. Our Philadelphia property, located at 401 North Broad Street, near Temple, Drexel, and other local high schools, tech hubs, and the Philadelphia Library, continues to be dedicated to offering students in the community opportunities beyond competition. Across all three venues, we focus on creating positive, practical, and career-focused experience and the technical and communication side of gaming, whether through competition or community involvement. The data that I'm about to speak of highlights the powerful impact of esports on students' academic performances. Participation in the esports program leads to improved attendance of 10% and also higher GPAs of plus 1.7%. Furthermore, 60% of coaches report better grades and attendance among players, while 30% of students express a greater commitment to academics. Esports also significantly boosts schools' engagement, with 45% of play versus students feeling more excited about going to school, and 80% of high school esports players being new to extracurricular activities. Globally, the esports industry is thriving, projected to exceed $1.6 billion in value in 2024, and the U.S. esports generated $243 million in revenue in 2021, contributing significant to local economies. Major esports events have brought substantial economic impacts to host cities ranging from 100 to 280 million. Cities like Jacksonville, Chicago, Nashville, and Atlanta, which considers themselves the capital of esports, haven't seen the tangible benefits from the growing industry. This is why we're all here today, because we know that Philadelphia can also compete and also be a part of that winning success for esports and also gaming. Employment within the esports has grown massively, with an 87% annual increase since 2019, and a jump from 39,000 to around 41,000 jobs between 2020 and 2021. Today, over 700,000 people in the U.S. are employed by esports venues sectors, surpassing employment levels in many other industries. Roles range from software engineering, game development and marketing, event coordinating, and content creation, and so many other different positions that we kind of spoke, that my previous colleagues just spoke about. Offers competitive salaries start from anywhere between $30,000 to $40,000 for entry-level positions to all the way to six-figure incomes for specialized roles. Beyond economic growth, esports fosters essential skills like teamwork, communication, critical thinking, and leadership, making it an important part for the modern economy. I know a lot of folks who spoke about different venues and how what's needed in the Philly area. Just to kind of speak about local hosts venues empower communities by providing high-quality PC and internet access, fostering academic, social, and career development. Nursery, with the support of Philadelphia, partners with schools to offer esports experience, whether that be commentary, production, marketing, enhancing critical communication skills. Data on esports' positive impact on student performance supports align local host programs with academic support, creating a more comprehensive system. Esports is a valuable education and career development tool, and I'll repeat that again. Esports is a valuable education and career development tool, benefiting students and the community. Together, we can nurture the next generation of talent and make a real difference in the community, in the city of Philadelphia. So that's all I have to. Absolutely.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Nick Madonna, and I'm the founder of PHL Collective and a consulting member of the PHL Gaming and Tech Task Force. Today, I'm speaking to propose how we can grow a thriving video game industry in our city by investing in dedicated funding for local developers and fostering programs to attract and retain creative talent. We can unlock Philadelphia's potential as a vibrant, job-creating sector centered around video games. With the city's support, we can transform challenges into opportunities and build an industry that benefits everyone. Before I get started, I'd like to thank Councilman Thomas for hosting this hearing, and I'd also like to thank the other members of the council who are present, Your time and consideration regarding these matters are very much appreciated. Since 2013, I've been running PHL Collective, an award-winning game development studio founded and headquartered here in Philadelphia, with the core goals of making great games and growing local talent. Out of nearly 20 years in the industry, I've been running PHL Collective for 12. Before I can tell you more about PHL Collective, I should quickly tell you how I got here. It's a story about leaving Philadelphia in order to come back, something that's not uncommon for local graduates who possess creative and technical skills. I'm a fourth generation and current resident of South Philadelphia. I was born here, I was raised in the suburbs, and attended Philadelphia University as an industrial design major. Video games were always my passion. At Philadelphia University, it wasn't meeting my needs, so I left and attended Full Sail University in Florida. I received my degree and returned to Philadelphia only to find no local job opportunities. I found an entry-level opportunity in Los Angeles, packed my bags, moved, and I grew my career there, working for large companies like Square Enix and Vivendi Universal on renowned AAA titles like Final Fantasy and Fear. I continued to grow my career with Saber Interactive, which was headquartered in New Jersey and St. Petersburg, Russia. With Saber, I lived and worked internationally, shipping huge titles like Halo, Inversion, World War Z, and even Shaq Fu. Once I'd built enough experience, contacts, pennies, and know-how, I bet on myself and returned to Philadelphia to start PHL Collective. A studio meant to be part of a small and growing local scene. A studio that would also help solve problems I ran into while looking for a job coming out of college. I knew there would be more people like me who didn't want to leave the city and were being forced to due to lack of local job opportunities. PHL Collective was founded with a team of 6 highly skilled local graduates from Drexel and University of the Arts who wanted to stay in Philadelphia and grow something. We were supported and mentored by Cypher Prime, Flyclops, and Final Form Games. These studios were founding members of Philly Dev Night, the precursor to game mechanics, and were the first wave of indie studios here in the city. Since its founding, PHL Collective has continued to grow its headcount to nearly 30 and has continuously signed major publishing deals to release titles based on world-renowned IPs like Star Wars, Justice League, Barbie, and SpongeBob SquarePants. Today, if you walk into any Target, Walmart, or GameStop here in the US, or a similar store internationally, you will find a game created here in Philadelphia by PHL Collective on the shelf. These are some of the games here in front of me. Oh, there you go. Thank you for looking at it.
You hear that, Mrs. Carter? We're trying, right?
Yeah.
And for those who don't know, I think it's really important to understand that, and I keep referencing Mrs. Carter just because the mayor isn't here, but Mrs. Carter in the Commerce Department has been a great ally as it relates to the work that we're doing, our advocacy efforts and having a coordinated initiatives to be able to fight for this. So, again, thank you for staying as well, too, Mrs. Carter. Your representation in the Commerce Department, listening to everyone's testimony is greatly appreciated. Go ahead. Please continue. I apologize.
No problem.
Video games get us excited, right?
So all of the games that you have in hand are games that you could find on a shelf in any of the stores that I mentioned. So all this is only possible with our local talent and the mentorship we received at Philly Dev Night. PHL Collective is leading the second wave of studios in Philadelphia, and it's imperative that we work together to build a support framework for current studios and future ones that we'll call the city home. Today, I urge City Council to take decisive steps to position Philadelphia as a leading hub for the video game industry. The following 4 targeted solutions are crucial for supporting current businesses while laying the foundation for future growth. First, establishing job creation and job retention tax credits will incentivize studios to hire and retain local talent, addressing one of the most significant challenges for local developers.
Repeat that first recommendation again, please.
Establishing job creation and job retention tax credits will incentivize studios to hire and retain local talent, addressing one of the most significant challenges for local developers, building stable teams in a competitive industry. By reducing the financial burden of employment, these tax credits can help studios expand, create well-paying jobs, keep skilled professionals in Philadelphia, and attract more game studios to set up offices in the city. Second, introducing a Philadelphia video game production tax credit will attract more developers, publishers, and service providers here to the city. Requiring that at least 30% of production expenses be spent locally ensures that these investments directly benefit Philadelphia's economy. Offering an additional 10% credit for productions that feature the Philly Makes Games hashtag or logo in their credits not only incentivizes local pride, but promotes Philadelphia on a global scale, attracting more business and eyes on the city and what is being built here. Third, abolishing the Philadelphia Business Income and Receipts Tax will remove a significant financial obstacle for small businesses, particularly those in the creative fields like video game development. Eliminating it will create a more equitable and business-friendly environment, allowing developers to reinvest in their companies and their projects. And finally, launching a creative grant program for game developers is essential to nurture innovation in this industry. For many independent developers here, access to funding is the difference between success and failure. By providing direct support for the creation and release of video games, this city can empower a new generation of creators who will shape the future of gaming while further cementing Philadelphia as a hub for artistic and technological innovation. These solutions are not just investments in the video game industry. They are investments in Philadelphia's economic future. By fostering a thriving creative sector, the city will attract talent, generate jobs, and build the reputation as a forward-thinking hub for digital media and technology. Council, thank you again for your time and consideration. I look forward to working together to build a stronger future for Philadelphia's video game industry.
Thank you. Thank you both for your testimony. Just a couple quick things. Thinking about your space, how many people do you have that come through your doors in a year?
So it's actually thank you for that question, by the way. So for our facility, it's a unique space because when we do our own events, we actually are able to contribute to bringing other folks in from different areas of the world. So I would say a few years ago, we had a CSGO event where we had folks from Australia, we had folks from just different, like Germany. I believe there was another place that someone else came in, that they're able to come in to compete. Now, obviously, those are one-offs that, we need the funding in order to market that. Our marketing team can only do so much and only reach so far, but we're able to reach out through community members by reaching out to one another. But on the daily, I would say for the Philadelphia property, we have schools. We have a free student hour from 3 to 5, where students can come in after school, have a safe place to kind of meet up with their friends, hang out, play games, get to know one another. From there, that's probably like around 40 kids that come in during that time period. Any other given day on a weekend, it can be anywhere from 60 to 80. If we have a tournament, it's anywhere from the hundreds to the 150s.
So thousands of people in a year
Yes.
take advantage of your space.
Yes.
Is it a membership fee?
Yeah, so it's not a membership. Memberships are totally free to make. It's just going to be an hourly purchase. So for 1 hour of play, it's $8, and then afterwards, 4 hours is, I believe, $20, and then 12 hours is $48. The hours don't expire. They're able to stay on their account anytime. They're able to stay on their account and come back anytime that they choose to come in. We also have day passes, and we also have worked with students like Temple or universities like Temple and also Drexel to provide day passes for the day where they're able to come in.
Thank you. You have the ear of the mayor. You have the ear of city council right now. You list a couple recommendations. What is the most important one or two? All of them are important. And clearly we need to exercise and use our platforms to try our best to implement as many as possible. This is my last question. What do you think is the simplest and easiest to implement? What do you think is the most important to implement?
The simplest and easiest solution to implement is something similar to Rob's testimony earlier, which is leveraging existing mechanics that are in place when it comes to tax credits, specifically the retention and creation credits. I do know that they exist for similar industries here in the city, and I know that the ceiling is very low on what's offered, but I think if we were able to leverage those existing pipelines, that would be the easiest way to move forward on an actionable item that would help developers. The single most important one would be the Creative Grant Program. If we have a fund where developers are able to fund their games from creation to actually bringing it to market without having to rely on a third-party publisher, that incentivizes and empowers them to generate revenue on their own without being beholden to a third-party partner that takes a large portion of the pie.
30 seconds, what would that look like for government to do that?
We could look at similar states like Georgia or Louisiana or even Montreal, where there is a fund that developers can apply to, get credits.
Government fund,
Government fund, yes,
and you would get the money directly from government.
correct.
How much are the grants in other cities where this already exists?
So in Montreal, you can get a credit anywhere from $150,000 to $750,000.
But you're not, so you're getting a credit.
I'm sorry, no, this is actually,
No, you're getting,
this is grant money.
right, you said anywhere from how much to how much?
150,000 or 700 to 750,000.
Okay, good to know. What if we were to do it on a smaller level?
On a smaller level, it would help, especially as games need specifically investment to get them over the line and get to market. Any amount of money that could be offered to a developer to help them release their game on Steam or Xbox to put a little bit of money into marketing, as low as 50,000, as low as 25,000, that will do worlds of wonder for a developer looking to release their game.
So the city created a pilot program that gave away $1.5 million to developers in the city to further their vision.
That would change things immensely for developers here.
$1.5 million. All right. I'm looking around, seeing who here it is.
Yeah, those are numbers that help with our initiative that build from the ground up. Those numbers would have to grow in the future.
My only thing would be this. It's very difficult to give a grant to a startup. How do we do this in a way that's realistic? Because for us, government can't fund an idea, right? You kind of got to be a proven, I'm brainstorming.
But government can fund an initiative, correct? And this
Yes.
initiative that the PHL task force is all about is furthering our economic goals and furthering an industry here in the city. So if you're a video game startup and you have a product that you want to build and you have a plan for how to get it to market, that should be enough to get a little bit of money to help you.
And it's enough in other cities.
What was that?
It's enough in other cities.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm getting multiple yeses. All right, I want to say thank you to this panel for your testimony. Thank you for your patience. I know there are a number of people who want to provide public comments, so I don't want to hold them up any longer. But we appreciate your expertise. We appreciate you being in Philadelphia. We appreciate you staying here. And hopefully the next time we come back in these chambers, we're doing a victory lap around what we've been able to accomplish and what we still need to do. Because we know we're not going to get everything done in the first round, but based on your expertise and your advocacy, hopefully we can see some things change that benefits the industry, especially with 2026 on the horizon, because we got to get gaming right for 2026. I want the PHL Gaming Festival to be big and amazing, but I know that there are so many other initiatives and events and creative ideas that are out there. I want us to maximize 2026, so thank you. Please, last comment, and then we can move on to public comment.
Absolutely. I just wanted to add one more comment for locals in Nerd Street. We're able to also meet you at wherever you are, wherever you may be too. So, if anyone ever needs support with equipment, we have the technology and we also have the infrastructure to actually help you out, build it out. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Maynard, if you could call up our witnesses for public comment. Just for those of you who know, during public comment, it's not normally like a question and answer thing. So you can come up, provide your name, provide your comment, and it will be added to the record, and then we'll be getting ready to wrap up. Are you guys okay? I know we're going a little late. I know you had one this morning. Amazing. Dave, Mr. Maynard.
The committee will now hear from public comment from Tom, Corey, and Hunter in that order. Gentlemen, will you please come to the podium, to the table?
Please state your name for the record. You may begin with your testimony. Please try to keep your testimony to 3 minutes, and we will allow you three to have the final remarks in today's hearing. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. My name is Tom Sharp. Do you want to go ahead?
Oh, I'm Corey Arnold.
No, Tom, it's public comment. So you go, you provide yours, and then we'll go to the next person.
All right. I'm excited to talk to you today because I think my testimony today is going to build off the ideas we had just actually mentioned. So my name's Tom Sharp. I'm the director of Gossamer Games. And a little over 10 years ago, I was one of the first teams to come out of Drexel University's entrepreneurial game studio. And from exhibiting at the Smithsonian American Art Museum to creating and teaching one of Temple University's very first video game design courses, this past decade has been unimaginably creatively and professionally fulfilling for me. But sadly, without swift and meaningful support from the city, I may soon be forced to leave my home here in search of greater production opportunities. Talented Philly developers like myself are starving for opportunities, as we've talked about today. So I want to explore making concrete solutions for that. We've talked a lot today about making games in Philadelphia, but I also propose we explore making games about Philadelphia. Let's find ways to connect game developers with cultural organizations, historical sites, event planners, and the tourism department to create games about our great city and all the amazing people and places we have here. We know that 2026 is going to be a pivotal year for the city. So what better way to show the world that Philadelphia is leading the country in technology innovation than to promote the city using the most cutting-edge entertainment available, which is video games. Let's invite the world to play Philadelphia in 2026. Imagine embarking on a national treasure-style adventure through Independence Hall in Old City, or watching the big 4th of July celebration directly inside of Fortnite. All of those are possible, and we have the talent here today to do that. It's no secret that the vast majority of media today largely ignores our city. And in video games, you can count the number of times Philadelphia has been prominently featured as a setting on one hand. Not only would Philadelphians go wild over seeing our home city and culture finally represented in the media, many brands and companies have proven that there's a tremendous opportunity for viral marketing using video games as the method. Giving Philly developers the opportunity to tell Philly stories not only provides the much-needed funding, exposure, and professional opportunities that we developers need and that we've talked extensively about today, it also produces innovative marketing materials for the city. And in terms of visibility, it is the most high-impact and high-profile method for the city to show its support for game development to both developers and the general public. The future of Philly as a national gaming hub is absolutely within our reach, but it's only possible if we take immediate action to support small developers today. Let's use existing infrastructure, existing funding channels, and existing initiatives to give professional developers creative and financial opportunities while the city becomes the first in the nation to embrace video games as the medium of the future. Thank you.
Thank you. That was amazing. Can the next person please state your name for the record? And sir, before you leave, can you just make sure that Dom and my team have your information? Great. Tom is amazing. Thank you. Please state your name for the record. You may begin with your next comment.
Hi, my name is Corey Arnold. I'm one of the very few people lucky enough to be a full-time game developer here in the city at this point. Before this, probably more importantly for this committee, I helped found the Philadelphia Game Mechanics, which was mentioned earlier, the community development group. I was also the program manager of the entrepreneurial game studio at Drexel University and helped support about 7 or 8 studios, including most of the studios here as they released all of their games to market. The reason I mention that background is because when we're talking about the brain drain and talent that we see come out of Philadelphia, I've had a first front row look at dozens of studios, I would say, that have risen and unfortunately fell before they could reach their market potential. I've seen all the talent leave the city in my various capacities here as a game, whatever I am, mentor or something. So I bring that up just to say I'm going to mention something very specific from the report here that I think would have solved the 12 or so studios that I've seen rise and fall, okay? So it's on page 12, we've already talked about it, it's bullet number 3. The city should pass legislation to establish a new city agency that would serve as a city-run video game publisher that could fund independent Philadelphia-based video games directors and companies. The problem and then the solution. The problem is that games take a lot of time and a lot of talent, but the opportunity for a capital return only comes once the game is finished. There's no way to fund all of that talent and labor at this point, so studios have to work for free on the very rare hope that their game somehow recoups their own investment if they're even able to work for free for that long, which of course nobody is. The solution? Simple investments, seed grants, as low as $50,000, ranging up to $300,000, would have saved nearly every studio that I've worked with. Making a game in the course of very short timeline, 1 to 3 years, with money that is graded across that timeline, with goals that are checked in with a committee who distributes these funds, would have gotten them to launch, gotten them to market, and could have potentially exploded their revenue if they were able to make these games into market. There are similar funds happening in Montreal with the CMF. There are similar programs that were already mentioned in Georgia, and there's a great number of them in Europe, in particular in Scandinavia right now. So all of those programs, if we were to emulate one like that here in Philadelphia, would be hugely helpful for all of these burgeoning studios. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilmember Young has a question, and since he's a council member, he can do that.
Thank you.
Technically, this is public comment.
Sorry, I'm sorry about that. But
he's allowed
what's
to.
the ROI on those investments, though, right? That we're looking for. I mean, as someone, investors look at how much the return is going to be, and as a city, right, we're going to make this investment in some of these spaces. It's just like, what does that look like when a game is successfully put out to market? Like, what's the potential there?
I'm going to be very clear and realistic about that. The video games are very specific in that they have a very low investment, initial investment, and have an incredibly high upside because games that make it out are reliant upon virality. So the ROI on small independent games in the last year have been like development terms of about $100,000, $200,000, and returns upwards of 10, 20, 30, $300 million and above. That being said, because that's dependent on virality, the only way this works is if you have low investments across a number of studios. So if you have a bunch of studios being funded, the possibility that one of them comes out is much higher than if you put all your eggs in one basket and just hope that they're going to be the next Fortnite. That is not how it will work. It'll work if you fund a lot of games for a little bit of money, and one of them could emerge and fund the rest of them. And believe me, we all know each other. If one of them exploded, we'd all just hire each other. That's how it would work. Or we'd hire new young people from Drexel, et cetera. So that's
You guys are singing our love language up here. So, this is very good to hear because I like funding a lot with a little bit of money more than a little bit with a lot of money. And for the record, $50,000 is a lot to us.
No, I understand.
So I just want to put that on the record as well, too, because I hear 50,000 being a low number. When I hear a low number, that's not what I'm thinking.
I'll just echo Nick, sorry to interrupt, Councilman. I'm just gonna echo Nick Madonna and say that literally any amount of money at these levels is very important. Everybody's working basically for free in the hopes that their game will get released, and it's just not sustainable at all.
Well, this is good information, so thank you. Know that your advocacy is important, and this is how we find out what's going on in your industry. I want to allow you to provide your public comment, and then I understand there's one other person after this. So the one other person, you could come on and make your way up, and we're only going to allow 1 minute for the last public comment so we can get ready to close out. Go ahead, sir. Please state your name for the record. You may begin with your testimony.
My name is Hunter Wu. Esteemed members of this committee, I stand before you today as both a game developer and a concerned citizen to advocate for the transformative investment in Philadelphia's future. My name is Hunter Wu, and I'm the founder of Matryoshka Games. For the past 6 years, I've been developing games right here in Philadelphia with my own company that I built during my time at Drexel University. We've released 2 commercial titles, and now we work for other big studios providing engineering support. My job as a game director and businessman is to pitch to you and pitch to investors to convince you to give me money to make this immersive and engaging world. Right now, I want to pitch to you another world, the world that we will live in 10 years from now, right here in Philadelphia, a city that will bring gaming businesses from every continent to the most historic city in the United States. Earlier, you guys were talking about San Francisco and California. What happens there every year? GDC, the world's biggest gaming convention ever. Every year that event brings in $40 million to San Francisco. You know how much a ticket costs to GDC? The lowest ticket is $200. The most expensive ticket is $1,000 per person. People come in by the thousands to these events.
How much do PHL gaming cost again?
It was free last year.
Oh man, we gotta do something different. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So imagine if Philadelphia could, get a fraction of that. How can we get there, right? We want to invest in the gaming businesses here, build that infrastructure What if we had our own GDC on the East Coast? You know how many people would come here? We could provide educational game development panels. We could provide esports events. We could provide networking places where businesses from all over the world come here to make business deals in the gaming sector. That's just an idea. I want to talk about how when I started my company, my partners, when times got tough, they actually left Philadelphia. They didn't stay. I stayed here because I believe that we have an opportunity here to really turn Philadelphia into the gaming city that it can be. I'm not going to say how much money the game industry makes. You guys already know all that. But, there's a lot of potential here that's still untapped. We want to keep these developers in the city, right? I want to bring my developers I work with here. Hey, guys, come to Philadelphia. They're like, why? The rent is cheap.
Right.
That's all I can say right now. But maybe in the future, there's other reasons why I can bring people here. As a side hustle to keep my business afloat, I also work as a substitute teacher. And I've worked in schools all the way from North Philly to South Philly, and I've seen the way that games change these kids. I've seen special ed students showcase and express themselves through games. I've seen the rowdiest middle school students in the classroom actually sit down and engage when we're talking about games and playing games and using gaming in education. In the future, in 50 years, I'm gonna be an old man. I'm gonna be sitting in a nursing home playing video games. Who's gonna be building those games? The kids that are growing up today. To achieve this vision, we gotta support the gaming businesses that exist here right now, the pillars of Philly's gaming industry. It's not really just about games, right? It's about jobs, innovation, building a brighter future for Philadelphia. It's about empowering our youth and also creating a city where they can thrive in the future and fulfill their dreams, maybe being a game developer. So let's invest in game development in Philadelphia. Make Philadelphia a leader in this exciting and dynamic industry. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. We appreciate it. Last but not least, please state your name for the record, sir. You may begin with your testimony.
How y'all doing? My name is Edward Kinnebro. I'm the founder and CEO of Mindset of Champions. We have 6 locations here in the city of Philadelphia that provide after-school programs for our youth here in the city of Philadelphia. We're in every part of the city right now except for South Philadelphia. And I just want to talk about esports from just a different lens real fast. I heard a lot of talk today from a dev standpoint, from game developers and stuff like that. My standpoint is coming from esports as education. And my theory is, Councilman Thomas, I don't have the high school diploma or skill set that a lot of these people have. I never even had like a regular job. I did a lot of street stuff. I went to jail and all that kind of stuff, but esports was my pathway to change all that kind of stuff. I don't play no video games. So my theory is what I didn't hear was an identity that the city itself wanted to take. I'm looking at, from hearing the conversation, that's looking going the direction of game development, but esports is still a baby across the United States. Like, you looking at stats, and I don't want you to skew the numbers and think an isolated incident is applied to the whole industry itself, because the whole industry ain't figured out just yet. So I want to make sure us as a city that we do it in a way that benefits us as a city. So when I say esports as an education, I'm looking at what should the city's identity be to actually stand out in this space, and I would like to look at why not the city itself be a pipeline for esports. Why not create the whole developmental pipeline from K to 12 with actual jobs, the whole industry itself. I think if the city separate itself and become the actual place to go to develop talent and gain skills in the whole realm of esports, I think that would be the way that you would separate yourself from the Chicagos, the Californians, and all the other places. We don't want somebody else's dream to become our nightmare. Just because something works in Chicago don't mean it's going to work here in Philadelphia. And that's all I had a minute. That's all I wanted to say, and that's it.
Well, thank you, and thank you for the work that you do with young people as well, because that is something that's near and dear to my heart, as well as my colleague as well. We're fathers, and we're always thinking about the next generation of young people. And the reference that you made, I don't know if I'm gonna be playing video games at 90. That would be a blessing if the fingers move that way and the brain moves that way. But I do agree with you that this generation is making and paving the way. And they're going to be the future that takes care of us. So thank you both. Thank you to everybody who came out today. Thank you for all the great work that you're doing in the gaming industry. Most of us are just consumers on the government side, if anything at all. So the work that you're doing, the perspective that you provide, the information that you gave us, and most importantly, the collaboration after this will determine what the future of gaming will consist of in the city of Philadelphia. Before we close out, thank you to my colleague, Councilmember Young, who's always one of the most intelligent young guys I know, but always very thoughtful about these critical issues related to the city of Philadelphia. So members of the task force, please get to know Councilmember Young, Councilmember Lozada, Councilmember Wu Landau, Councilmember Squilla, all of them, when I talk about this gaming stuff, have an appetite to figure out what can we do, because the numbers don't lie. The economy of it is real. And when we think about what we're obligated to do as elected officials, you know, there's an opportunity here that we can't deny. But like it was said, we got to figure out what our neck is going to be as a city, because we do want Philadelphia to be a gaming city. As I close out, again, thank you all. I want to thank my Chief of Staff, Don Miller, and my entire team, Thomas. They do an amazing job. But I just want you to know, I know it's not like super crowded here. I want to thank the Sergeant at Arms, the Tech Task. They always do great. It's not a whole lot of folks here. It's not super crowded here. But I really just one more time want to close out with thanking Ms. Tempest Carter. And the reason I'm thanking her is because you guys don't do this all the time, and we do. Very rarely do the administration stay for the entire hearing, especially when it's as long as this one is. So for Mrs. Carter to stay the entire time, to listen to every testimony, every public comment, my monologues, taking notes, right? It means a lot, not just to me, but it means a lot to the industry, because they understand that this mayor and this commerce department is serious about gaming, and hopefully puts a little battery in their back, so when they're talking to people in the industry, both in Philadelphia as well as outside Philadelphia, they can have this same level of excitement that we have to encourage people that, you know, it's a new day in gaming for the city of Philadelphia. So thank you all. With that being said, it's something formal I'm supposed to say to close this hearing out. Where's that at? Okay. Are there any other questions or comments from members of the committee or anybody in the public? Hearing none, I want to say thank you to everybody who came out to testify. I want to thank all of the panels and witnesses for your participation today. Of course, like I said before, we value your opinion. And this concludes the business before the Committee of Legislative Oversight. We will now recess the hearing at the call of the chair, which means we will continue this conversation in the near future. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.